Grand rising to you, family, and all praises and glory be to the Most High. Live in one, and may your life be abundant. Disclaimer. Me going to play something on TV. I'm pretty sure you've probably seen it. Maybe came across it. Could be old, whatever. I don't know. It's just when people talk about things, sometimes I want to give my commentary, my input too, especially if I've been affected by it. And people I know been affected by it and still affected by it. So let's get into it.
Welcome back. We want to dive in deeper. As we saw earlier, reparations is a hugely divisive issue. A Pew Research poll taken in late 2021 found that by a more than 2-to-1 margin, Americans oppose reparations for African Americans. And look at the racial split. Whites overwhelmingly oppose reparations, 80%. But the numbers are almost exactly reversed among African Americans who strongly support the idea. So joining me now is Cornell William Brooks. He's a professor of the practice of public leadership and social justice at the Harvard Kennedy School. He's also a former president and CEO of the NAACP. And Coleman Hughes is a columnist and host of the Society and Culture podcast.
Let me pause this. No, wait, yeah, let me pause this for a second so he can give me some commentary just on that. You see how I said white and black, right? Amongst white and black, what about other people? What about Arabs or Chinese or the real Africans, I guess? I mean, whoever they are. I mean, because I heard of Scipio Africanus, you know what I mean? And, you know, just like Americago, Vespuccia, whatever, about land getting conquered by other people. But my thing is, because people come from places, you know, people come from Europe, people come from Africa as a place. So people, but I have Indian in me, right? Why is it that we never see that on application? You don't really see that. Do they even have applications now still? But anyway, it says African American, Caucasian, Asian, Hispanic, or other. Do I put that? Do I put Indian? Because I know I got, you got Indian in me. This should I go on? We'll get to that later.
Moderator here. So, Cornell Brooks, let me start with you. You've been studying this for quite some time, and you've been working with some religious leaders to come up, I think it's fair to say, a modern blueprint of what you think. What would reparations look like in the 21st century? Make the case.
That's right. So I had the pleasure and honor of working with both the National Council of Churches and the Union of Reform Judaism and a group of Harvard Kennedy School students, working with these large religious associations all across the country, representing over 40 million people, to create a moral discourse on reparations. Why? Because we know that in many corners of our republic, it's being politically weaponized. And they're endeavoring to make, I'd say, 3 key points here. The first of which is, with respect to reparations, you often hear that the harm was too long ago, it's too expensive, and too impossible, too difficult to do.
Pause. Now, we might even have to go through all of this. You know, it's too long ago. Okay. And like I said, I'm Indian. I know this because of my grandmother who raised me, and I seen pictures. And I have Haitian in me too. A little bit of Puerto Rican or whatever. But Indian at the end of the day, born here in this land right here. My grandmother was born here 1920 something in America. Indian born woman, right? So with that said, that was a long time ago. Her dad purchased land, right? He bought land way long ago before her, right? Right? So my thing is, if my grandmother purchased land, my granddad purchased land, and my grandmother was born and she died long ago, right? But the land that my granddad owned, I don't know if he was still paying taxes after he bought the land. You know, somebody come, hey man, you got to pay me some taxes on this land you just bought. buy something, you bought it, right? I mean, I thought anyway. Money on wood make everything good. But anyway, all my grandmother paid the taxes. I don't know if my dad ever paid any. But I know I paid the back taxes, right? And my granddad bought that land a long time ago. Yet, somebody been getting paper for that land because we don't pay it. They take it, right? How much money is that? If someone is benefiting off the land that my granddad purchased, that's long ago. But he's still paying taxes or not, right? But it's always a statute of limitations when it comes to brothers and sisters, right? When it comes to us, it's a limitation on things. Do we have to continue, man? Ignorance.
What we find is the harm was not long ago, right? So in other words, yes, slavery ended in 1863 and 1865, but the convict leasing system, representing 1 million people enslaved, lasted up until the opening days of World War II, right? And all of these systems of oppression continue into the present, point one. Point two, with respect to reparations being too difficult. I want to know something, you Chuck, that's critically important. My colleague, Linda Billness, who's a public economist at the Harvard Kennedy School, we've done a study, and we looked at all of these programs across the federal government, and we make the case that we're already doing reparations. We simply don't call it that. So in other words, there's a norm in government which essentially says, if an American has been harmed through no fault of their own, the government will often step in to try to make them whole. We do this not only with respect to Japanese Americans who were interned after World War II, but we also do it with respect to veterans, with respect to people who suffered in a natural disaster. We do it with respect to children who respond by vaccines. We do it with respect to pensions that are insured. So we do this over and over again, which says that we can do it. And lastly, we do it at the level of millions, billions, even trillions of dollars. So we can't afford to do it.
All right, Coleman Hughes, let me bring you in here. You testified before Congress in 2019 against the idea of reparations. You said paying reparations to descendants of slavery would, quote, only divide the country further.
So,
You thought it would insult
already divided. Where's the united, brother? Come on.
Suffering as well. It would make Black Americans like yourself victims without their consent. I hope I captured that correctly, but you take it further. Make your case against.
So let me just make a distinction off the bat. I support reparations for redlining, right? Because there are many victims of redlining that are still with us. They're still alive.
Okay.
And Cornell, all the examples of successful reparations for other groups that you highlighted were examples of reparations given to directly the victims of these human rights abuses in their lifetimes or their immediate family members. That's why I support reparations for redlining paid directly to the victims as they're doing in Evanston outside of Chicago. I make a distinction between that and reparations for slavery, which ended in 1865. I know of no examples where groups...
Wow. Let's pause this. Okay. Yeah, ended. When? When did slavery end? I guess that depends on where you grew up. Slavery can't end if you have people who are murdering you in the street, choking you out, just not from a tree with a rope around it, calling you niggas, because people who were supposed to be my peers and protect and serve me, they were calling me niggas at 14. So how do you distinguish that with and take it away from slavery? Brother, come on.
For historical crimes that are over 150 years old. And unfortunately, the opportunity was tragically missed to pay it to the slaves themselves or their immediate families. But claims like this time out, right? And this is timed out. And let me say one more thing. Martin Luther King had a plan for addressing the legacy of slavery, which he laid out in his book.
He had a dream.
Why We Can't Wait.
And he's dreaming a deep sleep now, brother.
For the disadvantaged. The Bill of Rights for the Disadvantaged was not a race-based policy. It was a class-based anti-poverty program that would benefit the black poor and the white poor and the poor of all races. That's what I support in terms of addressing the legacy of slavery. That's what I feel is the wisest path forward for this country.
Let me follow up a little bit, Coleman, because it is interesting that there are some forms of specific areas where you believe a reparation of sorts should be put there. How do you distinguish Jim Crow? And what is the right amount of time? And I say that Germany is still paying reparations to now descendants of Holocaust victims. So what is the timeline where you feel like where you would draw the line?
So I think reasonable people can disagree on this, and I don't claim to have the last word on the subject, but I think we can all agree reparations should be paid ideally in the lifetime of the victim. If the victim dies, it should be paid to their spouse or to their children. Once you get to grandchildren and beyond, my personal view is that that's beyond my line. But like I said, reasonable people can disagree on this, but there's no doubt that, in my view, crimes from the 1850s and 60s are beyond the statute of limitations.
Do you see this where services can sort of be
Guess I didn't have to pause that. Everything is beyond us. And when it comes to the grandchildren are the ones that's going to be affected by the slavery. You know, it was the grandparents, because you can't have one without the other. But it was the grandparents that went through the suffering, and they didn't have a good life. They had a hard life. You know, just like you have trust fund babies who get benefits from their parents, and did their parents benefit from my grandparents? You see, that's how that works. And there's no statute of limitation on life in pain, because we come down to a family tree. If my family tree is affected by something, they're affected by something. If yours isn't, they're not. Good on you, mate. There's a such thing as a house nigga and a field nigga. The house nigga was always well taken care of. So why would he have a problem? Why? You don't have no problem. Go along, get along with them then. But just pay what is due. We're still paying taxes, paying for water, paying for air if you're in East Palestine, Ohio, right? It's life. I don't even know if I want to finish this out listening to this ignorance.
Life is better with the credit gods on your side. Rewards once available to the few are now accessible to the many. Credit One Bank. Get cashback rewards. Live large.
I guess that's a promotion.
Aspen Dental offers 20% off.
Here's another.
Making it easier to get started with quality care.
be what is reparations? So maybe it is free college. Maybe it's discounted college. Maybe it is tax breaks, however you want to describe it. Is that an acceptable form in your opinion?
It is an acceptable form. And when we look at what we call repertory compensation programs in government, they use a variety of strategies to help make people whole. But let's go to this point about indirect victims. When we look at the policies, when we look at government, when we look at history, we actually do compensate people who have suffered a harm indirectly and their heirs. Think about this. So in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right, Black Wall Street was bombed from the air. Homes were burned on the ground. No compensation, including for victims who are over 100 years old today. But when we bombed islands in the South Pacific, as in the U.S. government, we paid compensation to direct victims, indirect victims, and their heirs as a consequence of an American government bombing people on the ground. The point being here is when you look at repertory compensation programs, what you find is the variety of direct and indirect victims who are compensated for nearly every group but Black people.
I want to play a clip from Ronald Reagan after he signed a bill to repay Japanese Americans who were detained during World War II. Here's what he said in August of 1988.
And no payment can make up for those lost years. So what is most important in this bill has less to do with property than with honor. For here we admit a wrong. Here we reaffirm our commitment as a nation to equal justice under the law.
Really?
Coleman, is that a model
Equal justice.
for how America should deal with this? Could it be a model?
Yeah,
for
brother.
how we
Tell
deal
me.
with Japanese
Choir
Americans?
minds like to know.
Like I said, the opportunity was missed in the lifetimes of slaves. I know of 0 examples of a group, an ethnic group, getting reparations 150 years after the crime in question. Now, when it comes to honor,
Do you know somebody 150 years
I
old?
completely support those. I'd also like to point out many have been made, and almost none have been really accepted by the spokespeople for Black Americans. So, for example, both
Black.
houses of Congress
What is
officially
black, brother?
apologized for slavery and Jim Crow
Void
in
of all
2009.
things.
The Senate officially
You're not
apologized
black.
for lynching in
Your
2004.
jacket is.
Slavery is, of course, a
Your
state
beard.
issue, as you know.
Your
and
eyebrows.
8 different southern states have issued
You're
official
not black.
apologies
You don't know
for
what you
slavery.
are.
We have a beautiful museum in the nation's capital, which opened with an extensive exhibit on slavery in the Middle Passage, which was overflowing with patrons.
Sorry,
when
family.
it opened.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean that he's done talking.
Stories and
The thing is, we are not no United States, so it's already a division. So that's not an excuse to reason not to. If anything, it's more of a reason to take care of those who are descendants of Indians and so-called Africans or what have you. That's more of a reason. Because if not, you're still going to have disorder and chaos. You're going to have people selling drugs or doing whatever to survive because of the effects of slavery and Jim Crow laws and just flat out racism. You know, like whites only. Why you say the first black, this the first black guy? Probably was the first black. Because black is a color. You know. I am Indian. Period. So call me an Indian. Shouldn't pay no taxes. Anybody would be paying me some rent money. You know, you ain't gonna tell me I'm something I'm not. That's the problem here. We all get put in the same boat as if we're the same because our skin color looks the same. Don't mean we're from the same bloodline. You could be a Judas. I don't know what you are. But what's old is old. We all pay debts. Doesn't matter when something happened. If you owe, pay. It's as simple as that. The only group that hasn't benefited in their own land, where we're from nowhere else. You're gonna make it seem like I am. Just been, in a way, not me. I haven't been conquered. People came and conquered my ancestors and made them slaves. And they took land and came with their traditions and pagan holidays, you know, flat out. Didn't care if it's Halloween, Christmas, V-Day, or whatever that's out there, you know. But you don't want to get off track. But when you come and you tell a person they're from here, they're from there, you don't realize how much you are truly owed. You owed a lot more than they can ever repay. Can they give the lives taken back? I mean, even there's no statute limitations on capital murder. So if one of my ancestors was murdered by someone, how can you repay that? That's an ancestor that could have had other children that could be here to this day. Can't get that back. Can't get our traditions back, all of them. So we don't know everything completely. And that's why I do use the scriptures. Because it says, my people perish, for they know not who they are. If my people were to turn to me, I would heal them and I would heal their land. Ain't this a nation in a world that needs to be healed? I think people need to turn to the Most High. so they can be healed. I am trying to be healed by Him for real, because the world is up for discussion still. And no disrespect to Brother Martin Luther King, but the man had a dream. He had a dream. Has anybody else died after George Floyd, or is it just about George Floyd? What about Rodney King? What about the same things? And you say slavery stopped. When? When? If I can even be questioned by a white man, and no offense to a white man, but there should be no reason why you should ever even question me, what I'm doing on the land, or asking me for anything if slavery ended. Think about it.